tell me when you're ready.
For the Valparaiso International Center, welcome to our fourth Friday event on Puerto Rico. Our presenter, Miguel Rosario, has just come back from Spain. He was working on his accent, I understand. Is that correct? Very good. And he is very fastidious about these things. If you saw him earlier today, you would have noticed a little shaggy do. He has just literally come from the barber shop for your pleasure, your viewing pleasure here, but we will get back to him in a moment. As you may have seen, there are some flyers out. That's kind of our official flyer for the World Cultural Festival. So we've been talking about that all year. What date is it? Anybody know?
September 17th.
There you go, Sunday, September 17th. That's right. 2023. 2023. It is this year. Hasn't taken place yet.
Maybe next year also, different day.
Yes, it will. So come on in, welcome. Any seats are available up here or on the other side? So yeah, Sunday, September 17th, of course, always available to have volunteers. If you are interested, let me know or a board member know. We have pretty much all of our performers ready to go, but in the pavilion side for kind of acoustics or smaller groups, we might have a couple of openings, but we also do have a QR code. You can take a picture and send you to the website, and then pretty soon we'll be posting our various performances and restaurants and the like. We've got a great lineup of food coming up, and I know a lot of you come specifically for that. And speaking of food, we may have a treat tonight from the Caribbean, so we're going to find out soon. But as you know, we've been doing this for almost 15 years, about 60 different countries. We have done Puerto Rico once. Ida McAllister, I don't know her or not, but she's from Gary and Puerto Rico, grew up going back and forth. She presented in 2014, a long time ago. And so we've been doing this for quite some time, always amazing the number of different countries, different people, cultures, right here in our community in Valpo and Porter County. I want to thank Tom for helping us out with some audio and visual, and Kevin as well. For the first time since we've been coming, I want to thank you very much to Pastor Tim Leitzke, and thank you for inviting us into your church. We didn't have a space after we lost ours, and since January, some of you have gone to Ukraine, Spain, Sweden, Canada, Iraq, and India. And now you're going to Puerto Rico tonight, all free, and thank you very much for hosting us. Yes, Pastor Tim is here with his wife Emily and daughter Jane, and so thank you very much. So we're going to move on a little bit to now the main event for the evening. If you had a child or have a child in the Valparaiso Community Schools, you'll know our presenter tonight. You did, yes, absolutely. I have a couple here myself here, and if you ask a teacher like him who sees almost everyone that goes through the doors, because he's the head band leader for Valparaiso Community Schools, but he teaches music as well. He's probably senior child. So, for example, my son Landon played trumpet, and he said, "Oh yes, Landon." My son Camden played saxophone. "Oh yes, Camden." And then my daughter who came in, Giovanna, she played violin, didn't she? Yes. But orchestra is orchestra. Band is something separate. Although you've been called upon this year to do some orchestra, right? Years as a teacher here and head band instructor for many years, 30 years in education. His wife Esta is here. She's from Indiana, and they met at IU. Jacob's School of Music, I understand, might be a good program, so that's where he went and met her there. So yeah, we're going to hear some sights and sounds and hopefully later some smells from the Caribbean. So if you could please welcome Miguel Rosario to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it says it all, so Puerto Rico's here, meeting's over. No, just kidding. Can you hear me? Okay. First, I want to thank Mr. Davison for inviting me to talk to you, have a little chat about Puerto Rico, my experience, and so some of the things that you might be wondering, what is a Puerto Rican? I'm not wondering, but you want to see the result of what brought me here, and I'll go a little bit more into a little bit more details on that. My complete name is actually Miguel Enrique Rosario-Vega. There are a lot of R's in there. So repeat after me. The teacher in me is going to be asking you to do a few things. So, Miguel Enrique Rosario-Vega. Now, you might be wondering, which one's my real last name, Rosario or Vega? Well, my last name is actually Rosario. And the way that we do it in Puerto Rico is that when your child is born, you adopt your paternal first last name as your first last name. So, it's coming along. Then your maternal first last name as your second last name. So here in this distance between Puerto Rico and the mainland United States, it's pretty close. It's from Chicago airport. It would take you, with the wind on your back down there, it would take about 4 hours and 45 minutes on a direct flight. And on the way back, it would take you close to 5 hours to get to Puerto Rico. Is this coming? Okay. So I'm going to go a little further. So here we go, getting closer to PR. As you can see, when you fly from San Juan to the main island, you can see the wonderful Bahamas and all those things and so on. It's in the tropics. So the last time that Puerto Rico had snow was probably during the Ice Age, when the planet probably looked differently. But although years ago, a painter was commissioned to do some paintings of Puerto Rico with snow, go figure. I mean, like 40 years ago. So some of the sites that I'm going to show you, imagine those sites with snow. And now we're going to get a little closer. So Puerto Rico is 100 miles by 35. I grew up in this area, San Juan, Carolina, and this whole area of Puerto Rico is considered what we like to call the metropolitan area. Ooh, that city slickers, everybody else is from the island. We're all from the island, but we like to tease ourselves, each other, like, I'm from the city, you're from the island, really? Anyway, so I have relatives and families living in all places, like my brother-in-law. He's from Mayagüez, which is a beautiful town, and all those towns are very beautiful. Right now, there's a system of roads that could take you around the island and in other places and so on. Talking about the archipelago, this is Vieques, which is a municipal island of the southeast corner of Puerto Rico. This is Culebra, which is on the north. You can see there in the northeast. And there are a bunch of other little areas where you can see some islands in here. This one is actually one around here, might be covered. It's called Caja de Muertos. That means caskets. It's just the casket island. So it has its own probably stories behind it. Atlantic Ocean in the north, Caribbean Sea on the bottom, on the south. And then, of course, lots of good vegetation, and it has a mountain chain. They're as high as the Himalayas. I'm lying. No, they're not. But when my wife went to Puerto Rico years ago, she said, "You haven't seen mountains." And I discovered that when I was in Colorado a few years ago. And then, of course, when I went to the Alps a few years ago, too. So, yeah. So we still like to call them mountains, because they're all mountains. And those mountains have stopped hurricanes before, literally speaking, sort of. They didn't do it with Maria. Maria came with a lot of fury. Okay, so I'm going to go a little deeper here, and let's just talk about, when I showed you Puerto Rico, there on the main island, you can see San Juan. San Juan, there are two ways to how you can call San Juan, which is the capital of the island. You have Old San Juan and New San Juan, And the Old San Juan is basically an island of the island. So for those of you, how many of you have been to Puerto Rico before? Have you been to the airport and then taken you to the Old San Juan, or maybe landed on a cruise and then you were in Old San Juan? Well, actually, there is just a bridge that connects. That bridge is destroyed, and nobody can get out of that island because there's no unless you take a boat to go somewhere else, to Cataño or across the bay. So that bridge is called Dos Hermanos, the Two Brothers Bridge. So basically, I drove through this thing many times. I was in the youth orchestra when I was in my adolescent years, the San Juan Youth Symphony Orchestra, and we played a lot of activities on the mayor's offices and buildings and other things. And I was actually going from one island to another island to another island. What? Wait a minute, you haven't? Yeah, let me just talk about the next island, which is actually what defines Puerto Rico more of an archipelago. So Antonio, look over here. What shows up on the Googles. Anyway, so when you land in Puerto Rico by plane, you land in this area over here, which is called right now it's called the Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport. But to me, it would always be called Isla Verde. That means Green Island Airport. I grew up there. My dad worked at the airport. And it was called Isla Verde because it's located in an island, within the island. It wasn't Isla Verde as I was growing up because it was in Puerto Rico. So basically, you go from Old San Juan, you cross that bridge, you take a long road, you go through all that area, which is hotels and stuff like that. And when you're over here, this area is separated from the main island of Puerto Rico over here. So this goes over here. There's a little river that goes all the way up there. So that Isla Verde is just another piece of island. And there are two bridges that connect it to the main continent island of Puerto Rico. I said continent just for fun to see how many of you caught that. So you destroy those two bridges, and then we don't have access to the airport, or nobody would have access to the airport. Actually, now it's three bridges because there's one that I'm going to show you a picture later that was used actually as a location in one of those Fast and Furious movies. We happened to be in Puerto Rico at the time that The Rock was filming there with all those guys, and they closed the roads here or there. And they actually filmed some scenes in the town in Rio Piedras where my mom grew up. So she was all excited, like, oh my gosh, are you really filming a Hollywood movie there? Yeah, so the first movie that I think where The Rock is in one of those Fast and Furious, some of those scenes, a lot of those were filmed in Puerto Rico, in the Barrio Buen Consejo, where my mom grew up. Okay, so how my story began with those two wonderful, oops, don't go there. Oh, come on, okay, all right. There, those two wonderful people, like my mom and my dad, okay? And that's just something I don't want, that's my Google there for now. Okay, stay there. But Victoria Vega Colón, so she didn't have a middle name. And Marcelo Rosario Padilla, he didn't have a middle name. And three of my siblings don't have middle names, and the other three do have middle names. Did I get them right? Yeah, Vicky Bell, Evelyn, and Marcelo. They don't have middle names. So, Marcelo Rosario married Victoria Vega in 1958, and together they had 6 children, and I was number 2. That's a picture of my parents when they were younger. My dad served in the Army from 50 to 53. He didn't wait in the U.S. Army. He didn't wait to be drafted. He just went ahead and at age 17, he said, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And he passed away in 1998, so in his headstone says Korean, but he was on standby, but we were lucky that he didn't get called to go in Korea. My mom, she worked in the University of Puerto Rico's executive office. It was, what they call now executive assistants and work on all those registers and stuff like that. But when children started arriving, things change. That's my dad in his youth. Tough guy, He was from the east side of the island, from Fajardo. And my brother, who lives in Spain, based on his last name, suspects that I may be a pirate. Because there are pirates that were actually housed in the east side of Puerto Rico, which last name was Padilla. He discovered this by just living in Spain since 1991. I said, let me see where my family comes from. So he goes to those places where documents and registries and whatever that will be happening. It's not official, but he discovered that there were some Padillas in the east part of Puerto Rico that were pirates. That's my mom in her youth. I still remember when she got that picture taken. I was in some Photoshop close to our house where we grew up. My environment growing up in Puerto Rico was mostly urban in matters of roads, buildings, stoplights, concert halls, whatever have you. And then you watch TV from the United States, the streets of San Francisco, Kojak, Adam 12, you see those shows, Clint Eastwood movies. I was watching Clint Eastwood movies when I was like 10 on the big screen. And you think that the whole place is made out of cement, and it's not the case, And I'll share with you that experience later on. So that's my dad with his army buddies back in the days. Little disclaimer, yes, they're holding cigarettes. Not a very healthy thing to do nowadays, so young children, just ignore that, okay? I don't smoke. And that's me. So, Antonio, you can see where you get your look on that picture. That's me before I started walking. A little bit more of me there when I was walking now. On the fashion statement of the day, that is in our house that we moved, must be, let's see, I was born in '63. So the house was built maybe in the 60s when Puerto Rico started enjoying a sprawling of the suburbia life. People lived in towns and so on, and there was a sprawling just like happening in the States. Everybody want to have a house with a carport, a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 900 square feet. It was the dream that everybody lived in, and they were very happy. And they raised 4 children in that house, 6 children. That's now my mom, my older brother, that's me, and my sister. That's baby number 3. Her name is Evelyn. They gave my sister English sounding names, Evelyn, like Evelyn. My youngest one is Vicky Bell. That's me celebrating, I don't know which birthday is that one, I could tell my number. I think it might have been number 4 or 5. I remember, I have some ghost stories. I'm not going to share those in this presentation from that kitchen area, but I think the house was haunted because I got to see a few ghosts in my growing up. That's my older brother and I. Of course, we enjoy all the things. Of course, the younger one wears the shorts, the tough one wears the long pants. We had cowboy outfits, we had astronaut outfits, we have Roman and Greek outfits with the swords. We had commando outfits, anything that my parents thought it would be cute to do when you were growing up. Those were the little revolver, little thing that you would put that little roll and all that stuff. It would be fun. We point at each other and shoot each other, try to do that. Nowadays, you get arrested. My parents would be sent, to whatever have you. That's in the living room. That is in our backyard. That's my older brother. I'm in the middle, and my sister, Titi Gayita, right there. So I'm going to try to give the edited version. My grandparent, my dad was a slave that was brought to Puerto Rico in the 19th century that was living as a child, as a 4-year-old. He was brought up as a child, and his father was a slave in a plantation for some Spaniards in Puerto Rico. And when he was growing up, he fell in love with the girl that was the daughter of the Spaniards. Now, this is oral history from my grandmother to my mother to me, because that story was, I had to collect it for some bachelors in education. No, when I was working in education courses, he said, do a tracing in your family. Really, Mom? You know, and that's in the era where there aren't any phones, we have to have a nice conversation. Okay, so they fell in love and they eloped. Now, eloping, I guess, in the 19th century, Puerto Rico, I mean, you couldn't find somebody, I suppose. So, and the Spanish family were not happy. So the father went into some sort of hire people, went into to try to find where his daughter has gone with this son of the slave. And so it happened that to bed or to a wall every evening when go to sleep, you know, so to escape, or because he noticed that they were having an eye for each other. And one night, the boy, you know, the plantation, the son of the slave, who were already, you know, grown, took a horse. No animal screamed out of the farm, and went into the area of the house where they knew that he could get her out. They had planned everything. Then they escaped, and that's where the whole story begins. So they ended up having 6 children, 3 pretty ones, if you know what I mean, and 3 ugly ones, if you know what I mean. That's what the oral descriptory was. I don't agree with that. Do I look ugly? Okay, so does my sister look ugly? So eventually, so as we go into this thing, you can see that in my family makeup, as you're gonna see in some of the pictures, there's DNA of all sorts of forms, from the white Spaniard type, you know, fair skin on my dad's side, or it could be Italian, to the African side of that had to do with the with this story that my mom shared, that her mom told her, and then I'm just sharing that with you just for your fun knowledge. So I don't know if the picture can do justice my pigmentation than I do, which is fun. It's just really they're not adopted as far as I know. Nobody's adopted in our family. So we celebrated Christmas just like many American families do. That's me and my older brother. And we did spray our trees sometimes with that fake snow. A lot of things that you do in your youth, you know, that you're like, okay, my parents were really into that. So we would decorate our trees every day. We get Santa Claus, and we also got the 3 Kings. You know what the 3 Kings is? Well, now the 3 Kings is on January 6th. Very famous day nowadays. 3 Kings Eve is on January 5th. And what happens is that the same way that you get presents on Christmas Day, we also get presents on 3 Kings Day. 3 to be exact. Sometimes they overdid it, the 3 Kings, you know, so we kept that tradition. So this is another picture taken in the backyard. That's my older brother, that's number 2, my sister number 3, my brother number 4. He used to be called the blonde one, although for Puerto Rican standards. You know, his hair has gotten darker now in age. My younger brother is a professional trombone player. My younger sister wasn't being able to stand up yet, so she's not in this picture. You can see it later on. So going back to my parents on their happy wedding picture day. That's my older brother now. He's a teacher, a music teacher in the in the Dallas School District, independent Dallas School District. For many years, he was a musician and also a trumpet player in Puerto Rico, salsa band circuit and arrangements and stuff like that. A very wonderful musician, teacher, and now he, as I said, he's teaching in Dallas. And he taught in schools in Puerto Rico. He also has a Juris Doctor. He finished his law degree, but still wanted to do things in music related. That's from a picture that we had on a recent, that's my older brother, Zoom. And that's him playing. He's right here on the one of those salsa gigs that in his shoes. That's my sister and her husband. They're thespians in Puerto Rico. She also just recently won an award on the Helen Gray, is that what it's called? Helen Hayes, outstanding supporting performing play in a Washington, D.C. play that she did last February, in February 2022. Their long life has been doing voiceover, stage work. She's also a dancer, ballet. She took ballet all her life and so on, and played instruments too, piano and saxophone. They're wonderful people. We're flying out to Puerto Rico I'm flying out next week, and they host us, and my wife will be joining me a few days later. That's my brother. He's a lawyer. One of my younger brothers. He's a lawyer in Puerto Rico, and works a lot. That's my older brother, the one that is a trombone player in Spain, in Seville, principal trombone of the Royal Seville Symphony Orchestra. He was invited to perform with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra a year ago, and that's his wife from Spain, Luisa. And that's my first wife, as you met her, Esther. We went to visit them in Chicago, where he was staying in there, and you can see the Chicago skyline. And just a little bit more bragging points, that's him playing with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, getting ready before the concert on the trombone section there. He's a phenomenal musician, wonderful musician. Spoiler alert, I was raised in a youth orchestra circuit, and I'm a freak about when it comes out to that. I couldn't find a picture. I forgot to get a picture of Victor, but this is my younger sister, the baby of the family, and her twin kids. They came to the wedding of our daughter last June. And to conclude that little section, that's me on my first grade Catholic school picture. Notice the hair changed a little bit from my first few years until now. So I remember, you should see I couldn't find my fifth grade picture. I look like this. I guess the nuns took care of me a little bit between the kindergarten and the first grade. You went from a different school and so on. So then after that, I was like, okay, don't smile for the picture. Whatever you say. And that's me. And the emblem of the college is there, of the school. It was a private school. My parents sent us to Catholic private school for the first few years. My older brother went all the way to Catholic school until fifth grade. But when you have 6 kids, ka-ching, 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 I think the bill could get a little bit more, and then we started going to public schools. That boy that you saw there found this wonderful, beautiful lady at Indiana University. After 1 year, I didn't date anybody. I was just making sure that I end up with the correct one, right, honey? And she's a piano major at IU. Oops, did I get this? And then she married this guy. Not this one, that one, the one with the Batman shirt. So I thought I'd toss that in there, I like Bugs Bunny. That's our wedding picture. We got married in Bloomington, Indiana on June 7th, 1986. So we don't look 4 and 5 years old in that picture, so you can do the math on that. And then we started having kids. Not started, we waited almost 6 years. And the pictures of our 2 oldest ones, that's Christopher and Ricardo. And that's how they dressed up to visit their younger sister when she was born, number 3. Christopher finished a bachelor's in physical education and physiology from Indiana University. And Ricardo now is a United States Marine captain. So you can see that, there he goes. He's captain. Captain in the Marine. That's Olivia when she was a baby. You look like at the picture that I show you of me, and that's interesting. And then here's our Antonio with his foretelling IU little teacher. He just graduated from Indiana University on a bachelor's in audio engineering. We're very happy that they're all college debt free. They didn't have to engage in any of that stuff. Now, how is that picture made it there? All right, oh yeah. Boom, boom, let's skip that one. This is during Ricardo's wedding. So now they're all a little bit more grown. They are old, and we're very proud of what they have accomplished. This is Christopher with his current girlfriend, Grace, that's her name. She actually is a Spanish teacher in the Pike, Indianapolis school system. She graduated from Indiana University. This is Ricardo on his wedding to Delaney. Now here's a funny thing. my wife's, our kid's second last name is Hoover. So we chose the Puerto Rican tradition. So there are Antonio Enrique Rosario Hoover. Her maiden name was Delaney Hooper. Marrying a Ricardo Javier Rosario Hoover. But I don't think she's going with the Hooper de Rosario. She's going Delaney Rosario. We love her. She's a great lady. And that was in San Diego a few years ago. And that's Olivia with her first husband. She's still married to him. They just got married in June of 2022. His name is Daniel Arndt, wonderful guy. He just finished also his bachelor's in audio engineering. Olivia just got a job with the Indiana University Foundation, close to the things that she's going to be working on writing grants and stuff like that. She's looking forward to do that. And this is Antonio. On the day of the wedding was in the best man with Chloe. I like to call her Chloe, just for fun. And they're both finished their bachelor's too, and she's in informatics, something with computers, something smarter than what I do. And that's me and my first wife on our first wedding, 35th wedding anniversary, going out to a date. Then that's a little bit of a shout out to Mindfully Blind. Their members, Christopher, Antonio, and our son-in-law now, and Jackson. They have a nice band called Mindfully Blind. That's them playing at VU about a year ago in the Valpo Vibe. So go to Spotify and listen to Mindfully Blind. The lyrics are in English. They don't have anything in Spanish yet, even if two of them can speak Spanish. All right, and that's, of course, Ricardo when he was stationed at the Marine Air Corps Station in Yuma, Arizona. That's Tatooine. For those of you who know Star Wars, you know some scenes were filmed in that desert close to the Arizona and California border. Some very nice dunes. Okay, so now let's go to a little bit I'd like to share about Puerto Rico. Yeah, I got my mask about Puerto Rico when we had to wear masks in school or something, so it was cute to be wearing a little bit of the Puerto Rico flag, as you can see, has 3 red bars, 2 white bars, and a lone star. And it's the opposite of the Cuban flag, in where the bar, the colors, and some of those things are. Cuban flag is very close to it. There's a debate on which is the real color of this part of the blue, and I'll share that with you in a minute. But first, there we go. So we're going to take a little flight to Puerto Rico. So you saw on the old map how North America, Central America, South America, Caribbean, I took you there. So whenever I like to fly with Southwest, I like to see where we are in the plane and so on. And depending on which side of the airplane you are, if you ever fly to Puerto Rico, I would recommend to actually be on the left side, because this is the first view that you get as the planes are coming into the island. It's a beautiful, if you are landing on a beautiful day, that's what you get to have. This is now you start seeing a little bit of the metropolitan San Juan area. That's the Atlantic Ocean right there. And then I'd like to share this with you. This is a final approach. This is all San Juan. This is El Morro Castle. The seat of government is here. That's the Capitolio. Those are the, when you're on a cruise, that's where the cruise would anchor before people are let go to go shop and try some piña coladas and so on. It's always a wonderful thing to do when we are flying into the island. I like to actually be on the left side, and that's one of the wonderful. So you see there's the island in there, then the other island, and then there is the bridge later on that you're going to see a body of water where connects the other island and so on, the other part of the island. So the next is actually the final approach on landing in there. And you don't want to put your feet on that piece of water. Trust me. I mean, you're not going to be beaten by piranhas or alligators or anything like that. It just doesn't really look that clean. Those are condominiums and hotels and so on. We're already now in Isla Verde. You're flying into that part of you left Old San Juan, then you're in Isla Verde, and you're about to land. And there's always a beautiful view of the North Atlantic Ocean. And see more bodies of water that end or finish somewhere in there, and then there you go, landing on the way. I don't think it's loud enough on the speaker here, but there's a costume where when we land, Puerto Ricans like to applaud for whatever. I was told that the first time I flew in 1980, I was like, really? Are they really that ding-dong? So when I came back from my music camp experience, we landed in Puerto Rico, everybody goes like, ah, and they have fun. Like, okay. Last time that we were in Puerto Rico, our car had a license plate that actually was commemorating Roberto Clemente, one of Puerto Rico's maximum stars that we had when it comes down to sports, Major League Baseball. Growing up in Puerto Rico again, you're insulated from some of the things that you learn about the people that are doing a wonderful work out there and what they like to do and they love the most. And then as you grow and you get more curious and read about what he had to go as a quote-unquote American, quote-unquote person of color, quote-unquote somebody who didn't speak the language very well. It's just really amazing. I mean, it just really, it expands the view that I have of some of the heroes that I grew up with watching and enjoying play. Of course, he died tragically on a plane accident in 1972 as he was on his way for relief work in Nicaragua after an earthquake. And to this day, we're still like, oh, still mourning, still waiting for him to show up swimming. Somewhere in there was a wonderful man, a wonderful sports person. Here's a little bit the true colors actually of the Puerto Rico flag. That's the sky blue that it's supposed to have. There is debate on why is it being turning that dark blue, and it has to do with the debate of the Americanization of Puerto Rico and so on. And I'm not going to get into a political debate on that, but the other color is the true one. So as you land in Puerto Rico, that is one of the most amazing structures built by the Spaniards in the 16th century, Castillo San Felipe del Morro. You are looking at it from the north, looking kind of southeast. It's a structure that is very impressive as you go in and you walk around that area. It was a fortification that in the old days, in order for you to defend the island, you built a wall around the capital. The Americans figured out that you didn't have to go through old San Juan to invade the island later on when they were facing the Spanish Empire back at the end of the 19th century. But for the old colonial powers such as the Dutch or the British, they tried to invade Puerto Rico and take it away from the Spaniards during all this area of common things in colonization. That was the way they wanted to go there. Actually, how many of you seen the movie Amistad? There is a shot towards the end of the movie that they use the real El Morro, and they do it so well that they make sure that this is eliminated and this area is eliminated when the slave trade port is found on the movie. Steven Spielberg was in that location, and they found it and so on. And then when they're blowing it up, they're not blowing it up for real. They had different things. So that's a little closer. That lighthouse is not an original part of the structure that was installed there during World War I or World War II, as the Americans, Puerto Ricans eventually were given American citizenship in 1917, and all those things that go with when powers exchange hands of territory and so on. The main entrance is right there. It's a beautiful entrance to go in. It's a long walk from the main parking area to that area. All those things are, I think it was built in 1513, 1516, something like that. You can do the math of how old those walls are. This is another view from inside the fort. It's a beautiful structure to visit. I encourage you to go visit there if you go. That picture, I did take that picture, I think, on one of those. Some pictures I took from some stock, others are my own. Notice the Puerto Rican flag, the American flag, and to keep it as a nice touristic destination, of course, because it's part of the United States Department of the Interior or one of those things. the Spanish Empire colonial flag. And it's very cool to see that as you visit that area. In the movie Amistad, this area was used as some of the slaves were being sold. Here's another take of the Spanish Empire flag, Puerto Rican flag, and the United States flag. So there are some shots of that area that were in the movie as some of the people are walking, looking at the slave that they were trying to sell. And of course, this is an old picture of our children. It doesn't go as big as I thought it would go. In El Morro, a little younger. Our Antonio, of course, is now 22, but in that picture, he must have been 6 or 7. I think one of those. And this is inside El Morro. That's Olivia with the wind blowing to her face. And me and the whole family there. In that era, we didn't really, I had an old, not an old camera, you know, it was one of those SD card cameras. We would put it and time it, and then we'll all try to pose as much as we could before the selfie stick or selfie area. So that's inside the fortress too, in Puerto Rico, in El Morro. They have those things in there so you can see an idea of how cannonballs were done. This is a very, very peculiar thing of the fortress, the sentry house. Sentry house. The wall of that fortress surrounds the island, so you can see the island of Old San Juan, not the island of Puerto Rico. You can see some of this, and some people have established some living areas outside of the walls, but some of the main wall still remains. For example, like when you go to Seville, Spain, or other places in Europe where there are walls that were built by the Romans, some of those things don't last the whole thing, but you can see pieces of that. These are kids again in there, outside on the area of the walls. That's the San Juan Bay. Cruise ships enter through that area and they're docked in the ports. When you walk into Old San Juan, you're going to see structures very much like what it looks in Old Spain. Old San Juan has those kind of old colonial building architecture. We call these adoquines. These are still the original ones that were installed when the city was built hundreds of years ago. They made out of, I think, silver or remnants of brass or whatever. The government is doing some rethinking of how to limit access by modern vehicles nowadays into Old San Juan. Because for many years, it was just, you come in and you go into the, you know, you're going like that. But I think that there has been they're spearheading a way to wanting to do away from a lot of the civilization or the new tires or that. I mean, people are buying and selling trucks that don't fit through those streets. So go figure. So you'll see some of that. This is a picture in the Capilla del Cristo at the end of the Cristo Street. Those are our children. There's a nice story behind that about some kid winning a horse race and so on. And more samples of Puerto Rico, Old San Juan Street. Now, of course, those streets are not long enough to have wide enough to have vehicles going, but there are other parts in Old San Juan where cars, now this modern pavement, that means that the things that were there got lost, or sometimes people collect them, you know, stealing them, that's what it is. And so they're being a little bit more mindful on having things like this so cars don't try to squeeze in or park in other areas of Old San Juan. Now this is called Calle Fortaleza. Oh, I said that with a Spanish accent, Fortaleza. This is the governor's mansion, La Fortaleza. So of course, on a nice day where there are no protests and nothing or whatever, it's a nice entrance so the cars and the limousines and the escort or whatever can go in and out. The governor lives in that residence. It was built several hundred years ago. It's one of the oldest structures in our side, on this side of the world. When you are on the Bay Area, that's how the Fortaleza looks like from the bay in San Juan, as you're into that area. So that's the governor's mansion. I have been inside the governor's mansion. He has been inside the governor's mansion years ago. And that very same trip, we were able to visit. That's an aerial view of the governor's mansion. That street that I showed you earlier is this one over here. Then another sample of how the whole wall goes all around that old San Juan it did in the old days. Another part on the southeastern part of the old San Juan Island, there's still remnant on another fortress called Castillo San Cristobal. So you have San Felipe farther that way, San Cristobal here. If you've seen one of those Pirates of the Caribbean movies, there's a scene that was shot in that ramp. I don't remember which movie it is. You're gonna have to watch the whole 17 movies or whatever it is. Or you can actually Google it. You can go YouTube Pirates of the Caribbean scenes filmed in San Cristobal. And you can see the behind the scenes and all that stuff. Action. It's just like a little thing going up that thing. I had played there with orchestras, youth orchestra many times. We visited that. That is La Iglesia San Jose. I may need to be corrected on that, but yes. To the other side. Okay. It looks like on that church, the remnants of Juan Ponce de Leon were there for a little while. They may not be there anymore, or there's actually still like the body of some priest or saint or something. You can go visit and it looks like this on a glass or whatever. Like, whoa, you want to have a horror story. Some impressions. They're cleaning it up. It was closed for almost 20 years. I went to that place and played many years in my youth and so on, but I think the government decided to invest on restoring, and some of the frescoes and things that were painted centuries ago are coming back to life. And there's a little bit more of the things that they're discovering, because some things were built through the ages on top of the wall of San Juan, of the cathedral. So they're doing a good job on that old area. That is the main altar area. And of course, there's, I didn't take here's a picture of it. This over here. And of course, in the era that we're looking at re-exploring and learning more about history and whose statue should be there and who shouldn't, whatever have you. Right now, the statue of Juan Ponce de Leon is still there. And as we learn more about how we, as current citizens of this world, and how we want to do things, things are being reevaluated on whose statue is going to be there or not, or if they're going to remain. Some are in the camp or that should stay there. Other, well, it's like, well, that's its history and so on. That's for debate for another conversation. Now, El Morro, where I show you here, to El Castillo San Cristobal, which I'll show you the other structure. It's about a 30-minute walk if you're a fast walker like me. If you're not, then it's going to take you a little longer to walk. If you buy a ticket on either castle and you think you can do it the whole thing in one day, you can do it both in one day. I mean, you don't have to pay to go into the other castle and so on. That's El Teatro Tapia, the Tapia Theater. It's a structure was built in the beginning of the 19th century, I think, 1810. A lot of artists playing there. There's sometimes symphony concerts. It's a small venue, but out of the tradition of doing things still in the old part of Old San Juan, then I played there many times. I actually got to see Farberman in there, rehearsal with the Puerto Rico Symphony and concerts to that. We're talking 40 plus years ago. This is another part of San Cristobal, that picture that I showed you of San Cristobal. That's how the structure keeps going and expanding and so on. Every time I go to Puerto Rico, I just like to go visit Old San Juan. You know, there are many other wonderful areas to visit in Puerto Rico, but it just brings wonderful memories. And of course, getting into El Morro and so on is a very nice, hilly road. So if you're driving shift, you better be good at it. The Old San Juan has the seat building of government, and the Capitolio, or the Capitol, was, as you can see, built to reminisce, to be in close in resemblance to Capitol Hill. Puerto Rico enjoys a democratic type of government with a bicameral legislative system and a Senate and a House of Representatives. And that's where they all go to yell at each other about what's best for the island. Uh, this area here, this is kind of the southern part of the structure. And that is the part of the structure that faces the ocean. Okay, that's the part that it faces the ocean. Like here, see that there? It's very cool. Now, those are non-swimmable beach front. I mean, beach is where you swim. There are parts of the island where you really can't swim because it's either too rocky or the waters are too rough and so on. So we're still in the old San Juan area. See how the body of water still surrounds that whole island and so on. This is a picture of one of the chambers of government. United States flag gets the side where it should be hanging from, because when you're actually talking, the United States flag should be on the right of the speaker. So that's where it is right now. Now, a little bit of Puerto Rican culture. Those are masks of vejigantes. Vejigantes are basically stories about people that come and want to get rid of spirits here or there, whatever. It's very fun. It's a fun thing. And you can buy those if you ever want to go to Puerto Rico, and there you can get the whole story about it more. So now more accents of the island, a little bit more details of the old San Juan Island. This is now main island over here. As we're gonna go, as we tour, we cross the bridges. Laguna El Condado. How many of you remember Carl Wallenda from your news of the 1970s? You remember what happened to Carl Wallenda? He died. He was a tightrope, one of those walkers. Caramba, sorry. Very much. This is where he fell off. He was trying to go from this building to this building. You can YouTube it too. So Carl Wallenda of the Wallenda family, tightrope dynasty, circus, walkers or stuff like that. That's where he met his death, in that street over there. I wasn't planning on saying that. Guess it just popped up because it's just a little bit of trivia. So when you go to Puerto Rico and you are in that area of Condado, you could say, this is where Wallenda died. Okay. More of that, the Puerto Rico Symphony Concert Hall is somewhere over here. I don't know if that's not as focused as I have it here. Can you see it? So, government buildings. My mom, our house used to be somewhere over there, and so on. She's now in an assisted living area. This is more of what you saw on the airplane landing, just a little bit more of a little bit of everything. Our kids in the Isla Verde beach, when we went there years ago, I don't think they like to go to the beach. Do you like to go to the beach when we go to Puerto Rico? No, they hate it. It's just hot, sand gets everywhere. That's a quote from Attack of the Clones. I hate sand, gets everywhere. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. They really love it. If they could stay there all day, we'll do that. And then there's a sports arena. My brother works, the lawyer works in one of those buildings. The new music school is somewhere around here. The one that I went to, there was another building before. The one that I went from 9th to 12th grade. That's Puerto Rico's banking center, or San Juan, the Wall Street of Puerto Rico, San Juan. And the tallest building, I think it's 22 stories, 23 or something like that. Our tall buildings are like the size of the chapel here. Puerto Rico enjoys a very good higher education system. The University of Puerto Rico is well regarded. Medicine, people that train on medicine train in the areas of American medicine, and it has a very iconic tower. We have visited that. Our parents used to take us picnicking there when we were kids. There's some pictures of, I think it was, I remember which one of my brothers, maybe the trombone player. Some pictures that we have to dig in our memory lane. And so my mom is from Rio Piedras, and that's why the main campus is located in Rio Piedras, which is, say, a district of San Juan proper. And you would be a great engineer going to one of the campuses on the island, lawyer degree, CPA, all those things, and so on. This is the bridge that connects one part of the island now to the other, Isla Verde, and that's where some scenes of Fast and Furious were filmed. And you can see that in the movie. You just type it on Google if you're interested, and so on. Now, I'm going to go ahead and head into that over there. Let's see. What is it not showing? Oh, maybe I have to, excuse me here. Let me go and refresh. Refresh my screen. Oh, or maybe not. I was going to show you something, but I think we're going to just skip it. I'm going to go now into the music portion of our presentation, and I hope that you brought your dancing shoes. But we wouldn't start a dancing portion of Puerto Rico without starting with the Puerto Rico national anthem. And I'd like to play it for you. That's El Yunque, by the way. And let's see if the thing didn't shut on me. Here's Puerto Rico's national anthem, and I still know it by memory since I was a little kid. Tierra de Borinquen, donde nacido yo. Es un jardín florido de mágico esplendor, un cielo siempre nítido, la llena de doce, y dan arrullos plácidos las olas a sus pies. Cuando a sus playas llegó Colo, exclamó lleno de admiración: oh, 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 esta es la linda tierra que busco yo. Es Borinquen la hija del mar y el sol, 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 del mar y el sol. There. Thank you, thank you. Basically, it translates to what a beautiful land, has a beautiful sky, has wonderful beaches that bathe the shoreline. When Columbus arrived, said for the first time, this is the wonderful land that I've been looking for. Yeah, that was on the second trip in 1493, so it wasn't enough that he was doing already damage somewhere else. Oops, anywhere else. But then, of course, the poetic part of the thing, he goes, this is the land that I've been looking for, and it's Puerto Borinquen, la hija del mar y el sol, the daughter of the sun and of the sea. Mar y sol, mar y sol, mar y sol, mar y sol. That goes there at the end. So it's a beautiful, they're beautiful lyrics. There's another unofficial hymns also that people like to sing or like to identify themselves with, depending on what political affiliation you're looking for. So now Puerto Rico enjoys a rich vegetation, many types of fruits. We grow pineapples, bananas. I call them bananas. Has beautiful beachfront in many areas of the island. El Yunque National Forest operates under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a beautiful place to visit. It's a rainforest. It rains a lot. That's all. Sometimes you'll be there and it'll be a day like when you came here, it was very sunny. Then you're there and all of a sudden you hear this. And it's these droplets of water like this big that really hit you, and then it just comes and rains and then goes away. It's a beautiful place to visit. We're taking our kids over there. There are a lot of cool waterfalls. When you're there, it's part of El Yunque. This tree over here, we have adopted it as one of our national trees. It's called flamboyant. It's a beautiful red color leaves and so on. Now originally from Puerto Rico. It's an invasive species. Ooh. But it came hundreds of years ago and it's all over the island now. Just like those ugly iguanas now, which you can eat. They are invasive species. Iguana because you've seen them on Galapagos and other things like that. This is a view of the Atlantic Ocean from El Yunque that you can see when you're in a nice spot in there as you go to the visitor center. When we went snorkeling, we go to an area over here that takes us through another kind of little islands on the archipelago, and you can snorkel and go into some of those catamarans. They're wonderful to go and enjoy some time. This is part of an area on the south part of the island that is called Bosque Seco, or dry forest.
But there's water there.
Well, yeah, there's a water that comes into a little lagoon that is inside from the Caribbean Sea, but that's basically a very dry part of the island, believe it or not. So you get El Yunque, when you remember the island, over here, and Bosque Seco is right here in the southwest in a very dry area that doesn't get much rain. We spent some time with our family there and some friends. That's part of Bosque Seco. See how dry cactuses all over the place and so on. It's a very beautiful, diverse landscape that you can find within the island. We call it a desert too. I don't really think, not much of a desert. That is Puerto Rico's really big pride. It's called coqui. Coqui is a little frog. It doesn't have any webs, so kind of technically can drown. It has a very peculiar sound at night. When you're in Puerto Rico and the stars start appearing and the sun is setting and so on, Puerto Rico is very noisy on the creator side, very noisy. Now, I grew up with it, so I really, really enjoy it. And the coqui sounds like this. Now imagine 3 million of them doing that every night. Okay? It's spelled C-O-Q-U-I with an accent on the I, coqui. It's pronounced C-O-O-K-E-E, coqui. So there were millions of different species, but now I think, for what I understand, maybe only about 17 species surviving within the coqui thing. You know how you have a species and they can subcategorize it, this and so on and so on. Like, I'm sure you know what the difference between an alligator and a crocodile is. And yes, sir.
I've heard that they've done away with the zoo because of the various catastrophes that have happened there. I work at the San Diego Zoo, and I think we've gotten some of the animals from Puerto Rico.
Yes,
they did away with the zoo because of that.
They did close them. And actually, coquis we were told when we were growing up, the legend says that coquis cannot survive outside of the island. Well, guess what? I guess some of them sneaked into some cargo ship and they made it all the way to Hawaii. Residents of Hawaii hate them. They're trying to exterminate them because they can procreate pretty fast, just like the iguanas that have like tiger tails and stuff like that in Puerto Rico. And that's an invasive species that started actually basking in the runway. I'm getting a little bit off track. When they were multiplying a lot in the runway of the airport. So planes are like, oh, what's the heck is that? You know, you cannot land a plane when you have 10, 12 iguanas basking, you know, getting there. So then the airport authorities decided to get rid of the trees, and then people started complaining, you are protecting the iguanas. I said, the Department of Natural Resources said, those are an invasive species. We can get rid of them. And then now people can have them for dinner and so on. Puerto Rico's periqui, it's a beautiful bird if you get to see them in El Yunque. They're very, very beautiful. This is El Guaraguao, which is kind of Puerto Rico's hawk. The Guaraguao, we have discovered, could be the predator for the invasive iguana species. The problem is that we don't have that many Guaraguaos to eat the amount of iguanas they need in order to try to stop the problem, because the iguanas can lay eggs 3 times a year, up to 65 eggs per laying. So if you ever go to Puerto Rico and you're eating in one of those beach little cantinas and so on, whatever, and they're feeding you something with meat, feel free to ask, is this iguana or not? Because some of them are now advertising, this is not iguana meat. There's also a snake in Puerto Rico, a kind of boa, that actually also can eat the iguanas. They could just like, but again, we don't have enough of those snakes to eat the iguanas. So it's kind of fun how things are happening. This is actually a natural creature of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's little gecko, they are everywhere. And when we were kids, it was a panic attack whenever they enter the house. Ah, look at Tijo here, oh my God, ah, get him out. They're not poisonous, the ones that I'm gonna show you pictures. They just kind of look mean in different colors. But feel free, I mean, if you're in the yucca sometime and they jump on you, you just go like, hey, get out, get out. They could be pretty fast and vicious. Sometimes you might find some of those guys walking in the parking lot or the shopping mall or anything like that. It's called a chicken, it's a hen. They won't bother you. And Puerto Rico's traditional food that we like to eat a lot is the roasted pig. Oh my gosh, that is a delicious thing to have. There's a part of Puerto Rico called La Ruta del Lechón, Guabate, in where you can have as many, there are different stores and so on that have that. This is a sample of a lechón, which is pig, with rice with gandules, which gandules is a kind of a bean, you know, pigeon pea, you can find them in here. This is not intended to be a product endorsement of the following that I'm going to do in a few minutes. This is called morcilla. This is blood sausage. I love it. Oh my gosh. You put a little bit of hot sauce in it and it's like super delicious. Do you like the morcilla? Antonio, do you like it? My kids like it. This is not intended to be a product endorsement. You may want to do this when you're editing, but these are a lot of the spices that we use. It's called basically adobo. And Goya brand has figured out how to do not one adobo, but 20,000 of them. You know, with pepper, without pepper, with lemon, with whatever it is. So we use this to spice our chickens and meat and so on. We also use this to, maybe depending on what my wife picks, recaito, which is cilantro cooking base. Now you can buy it like that, you know, and sofrito, but in the old days, my mom would just make her own. It's made out of garlic, cilantro, it's all that stuff, and everyone that would cook would do a recao. My wife has actually some recao too. You freeze it, and then you can use it for soup, stews, and other things, and so on. We also like to use this. It's a seasoning. What? Yeah, you can get those things in a Walmart or Meijer, you know, go to the Mexican section. Or in some areas, I'm an international thing, or whatever they call it. Mexicans don't really use that. So, but we're mixed with the thing. Our food is differently spiced than when you go to, say, to a local Mexican restaurant, like Taco Bell. You know, we don't eat hot sauce type of, ours is more Mediterranean garlicky flavor. And that's how we spice our, you know, this is, you can see here, it's a piece of meat, chicken, shrimp, carrots. You can have a veggie soup based on just that. This is some sort of fat. It's like an oil pasty fattening thing, but you can see all the things that this is based on. Even says this one added a little bit of chili. Sacrilege. So anyway. But that's for rice or whatever, but this is what the main ingredients: green peppers, onions, culantro, and garlic, and olive oil. And you just put a little bit if you want to kind of do it with your beans or with some stew stuff or whatever, and then you put the rice or whatever. I'd be more than happy to do some cooking lessons of that. This is a very traditional dish. This is called mayo ketchup. You mix mayo with ketchup. And then somebody decided to brand it, so you can also now find it somewhere in some heavily Puerto Rican neighborhoods in the United States. But we use it with totones, which is a kind of plantain. It's green plantain and so on. Another very Puerto Rican staple is the piragua. The piragua, you can see those. It's basically shaved ice with heavy, sugary syrup. But when you're hot walking in old San Juan or visiting or whatever, and that guy shows up like, can I have a piragua? Can I? Just sucking that ice like crazy. And the same thing with our Puerto Rican local sherbet, which is, you know, they go on the beaches and they have some very nice tropical flavor ice creams and so on like that. It's to support. Now, this is for the adults in the room, and I like to talk about the coquito. Coquito is Puerto Rico's national alcoholic beverage. Not really. There's a building in Old San Juan that claims that it's the birth of the piña colada. I haven't done the research on that. I just saw it in a plaque, and it's just like, whatever. The coquito is a coconut-based drink that is actually drank a lot over Christmas, chilled with ice, or you can drink it chilled out of the refrigerator. After you make it, you have to let it chill. And these are the ingredients that are used. Cream of coconut, 1 can. It comes pretty heavy. Evaporated milk. You see where it's heading? Sweetened condensed milk. And your choice of alcohol. My brother-in-law, the one that I'm going to be staying on next week, I'm going to hate staying on his place. He likes to use Don Felipe II as you can use rum or some kind of whiskey, I wouldn't suggest it. But when he uses this one, oh my gosh, 8 ounces of it is just the same size, or just to your level of alcohol. Then you mix it in a blender. You can put a little bit of cinnamon if you want to. Then you shake it, then put it on the refrigerator in a glass bottle, I suggest, and then drink it when it's very nice and chilled. Yes, sir?
They have the rum factories too, you know, tourists go.
Yeah. In Old San Juan, across in Cataño, there's the rum dynasty, rum, yeah.
Is it a particular brand name? I can't remember.
If I have had 3 ounces of rum in my whole life, that would be a lot. That tells you how much I kind of don't like rum. So I guess that takes me out of the Puerto Rican race or the Puerto Rican of the world or something. I have tasted it in Coke and stuff like that, but by itself as a shot, I smelled it enough times to know that that's not the way that I like to. But when it's mixed with Coke or with Liquor 43, another kind of brand, it's like, I mean, not the rum, the Coke. Anyway, but yeah, Puerto Rico is heavy on rum. It has one of the big industries in the world. This is Puerto Rico's instrument called the cuatro. It's Puerto Rico's mandolin, to make it, you know, like the banjo here in America and all the instruments. It has 10 strings. An idea of one of the sounds of my land, of where I grew up, exposed to. You go to a Puerto Rico party on Christmas time, you may be exposed to something like this. And that's people just doing plenas and trumpet. Those are typical instruments of the bomba y plena. There's a guiro. That's my family having fun on a Christmas a few years ago. It's my sister-in-law, married to the lawyer that works in San Juan. These are Spanish people visiting from Spain, literally, that came to visit, came with my brother. So anyway, they're just having fun. Puerto Rico also has institutions such as the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra. That's me, actually. You can see it that well over there. That's my teacher. That's me over there, yeah. These two were my teachers when I was growing up. We're playing on that particular recording. We're doing Mahler Symphony No. 3 on the Festival Casals in Puerto Rico. Now, you can see a lot of the influence of outside world. That the last time I was visiting my neighborhood, I found a street with that name. Calle James Bond. That's a picture of me on my junior year in high school playing trumpet in a concert. We had a wonderful teacher, and this is the view that you get when you live in the island on the left side of the plane, on whatever airline you're flying, and taking off from San Juan Airport, not Aguadilla. I think that some flights are now flying out of Aguadilla and Ponce, which is cities on the northwest and the south. And as you leave, you enjoying the wonderful island of Puerto Rico for one last time, as you can see it taking off. Just to conclude today's presentation, picture of Puerto Rico from satellite picture, from the space shuttle or some of those spy things that we have around. My mother, let me get out. So, my sister that came to our son's wedding, that's my wife with our daughter Olivia in San Diego in 2019. My brother and I been silly when he came to Chicago last year. My sister with her daughter Vico, she's in a TV series in HBO Max or in HBO called Our Flag Means Death. She's making it as a thespian act and everything. That's my brother and the wedding. That's the wedding from last year. We got lots of family coming in and we're almost done here. That's wedding pictures. It's in there. That's me when we were in Puerto Rico last year. That's what with our family this year. On Christmas time, Christopher, Ricardo, and Delaney, Christopher and Grace, Olivia and Daniel, Antonio and Chloe, us, Olivia visiting us at their church in Chesterton. Oh, look at that guayabera, looks familiar. Well, it's the same thing I'm wearing now. Okay. And I have wonderful things to say about my upbringing in the United States, of course. I've been living in the United States since 1982 when I went to IU in my freshman year. I waited 1 year after I graduated from high school. I know that the discussion of politics and how things were in Puerto Rico is not part of what we're talking about today. Maybe that will be another thing that we can do later. That's me doing the Summer Rhapsody Festival Orchestra, courtesy of Dr. Leland and Dr. Leland, the two Lelands who were wonderful patronizers of that. So the gifts that I learned to do, that I received from my teachers in Puerto Rico, I like to pay it forward with teaching music here in the United States. And that's me with the principal trumpet of the London Symphony. I was a Lilly recipient, two grants of Lilly Endowment. And just to give you a scope of how growing up in a small island, being exposed to the world and having wonderful blessings and things, not everybody have had the same opportunities, but I like to keep paying it forward so much as possible to all the people that have been a great influence on me. And just I'm gonna let you go with a little bit of a trivia here. For those of you that see, will you read what it says on the next caption? Yes.
When you realize Captain America's suit doesn't have 50 stars, so it's actually Captain Puerto Rico.
Anyway, so it took me 60 years to figure it out. Actually, somebody sent me that and I thought it was funny to finish it. I hope that I was able to give you a little bit of a dose or a little bit of Puerto Rico from a personal perspective. I could be talking for another hour, but I'm gotta go home and sleep. We brought a few samples of Puerto Rican little just very limited because Puerto Rico's cuisine is really extensive. But my wife, we arroz con gandules, and we got some guava paste and cheese and crackers and stuff like that. Anything on some beans using some of the spices that you saw there, that you saw there and so on. So, do you have any questions that you would like to ask?
Where's the best place to hear Puerto Rican music in the area, and where's the best place to have Puerto Rican food?
Oh, here?
This area.
Oh, in this area, that's a good question. You have to go to Chicago, although there is a truck around called the Portable Rican that goes to places. They have passed taste, a master over here. Kids are like it. They're very good, very authentic, very good. Puerto Rican music, it depends. Like the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra was in Chicago last year, and they were playing music of Puerto Rican composers. Puerto Rican live music, you have to go to Chicago probably to listen to that and see if the Puerto Rican Culture Institute or something has some outside. I think there's a Puerto Rican fest or parade that happens, and they will bring some of those things. Honestly, I'm still very old-fashioned. I'm with salsa, maybe I like some Ricky Martin, it's pretty good. You know, living la vida loca, that's cool. I haven't heard reggaeton or Bad Bunny enough to really make a informed, educated comment on that, okay? So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I do know, however, that Bad Bunny supposedly have a foundation called Good Bunny, and they do help the needies in Puerto Rico and all this. Whatever money he's getting out of whatever have you, I was very impressed to read that about what he does outside the stage work. that some people do. I saw another hand over here.
Hold up.
Oh, yes, sir.
So we're limited on time, just
Okay.
so you know.
All right.
And we have this for just one or two questions. That's it.
He has one.
Right. So I before we do that, just want to make sure, because I want the audience to know, is Puerto Rico a state, a territory? Is it an independent country? And what will it be soon?
All of the above? Okay. It depends who you ask. Okay. Disclaimer, my parents were pro-statehood, Puerto Rican. My father passed away, so they lost that vote already. And my mom is in a nursing home, she doesn't vote, unless we go ahead and tell her where to vote, and that would be illegal. So Puerto Rico currently enjoys a status that is called the Commonwealth, Free Commonwealth State, or something like that. So it was, Constitution was formed in 1952, after Puerto Ricans were citizens since 1917. If you ask this group, they would say Puerto Rico is a colony. If you say this group, it's an independent commonwealth. If you say this group will say Puerto Rico enjoy a free country status because we have representation on the Olympics, representation of, for example, if I all of a sudden get a call next month and say you're going to conduct the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, I could say, the first Puerto Rican to conduct the Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, yeah. But it wouldn't be the first American. See how it goes? It's just all the things. So the first person from Carolina, Puerto Rico, or something. So that particular topic, right now, it is not a state. Puerto Ricans don't pay federal taxes in Puerto Rico. I do pay taxes in here like everybody else, okay? When you're working here, you pay your FICA, your Social Security, your Medicare, your state taxes, your county taxes, your sales tax. It would be nice if I just have a card and say, I'm Puerto Rican, I don't pay taxes. Then everybody would like to have a card, but that's the thing. So with that comes a little bit of political turmoil on what America can do versus what Puerto Ricans demand to do. Puerto Rico has had, I grew up with 3 political parties, actually 4, that were always vying to get the vote of those who were voting. So the Partido Nuevo Progresista, which came in the 1960s, which was the one that advocated for statehood. Partido Popular Democrático, which is basically the party that likes the status quo, depending, the cohesive or the symbiosis that works in both systems of government. The PIP, Puerto Rico Independence Party, people that want total independence, but they would like to sometimes advocate to still use American currency. American currency is like, okay, make up your mind. And then, of course, the PSP was Partido Socialista Puertorriqueño, who were socialists in the form of, but not the type of socialism that sometimes the European monarchy socialism or democratic socialism, more like the ones that Cubans are enjoying right now. If I haven't been in Cuba, so I don't know how much they're enjoying living on that type of socialist environment. You're gonna have to ask a Cuban about it. You can read all about it you want in the news, but you're gonna have to ask Cubans about that, okay? Did I get that right over there? I mean, so I don't say that it's terrible to live in Cuba because I haven't lived in Cuba. I don't go into that department. Yes.
Very good.
So this person had his hand here for the last, can I ask him?
Okay, that will be the last question.
Okay, that's fine, thank you, thank you. Yes, go ahead, sir.
There are a lot of Puerto Ricans that serve in the American military, and all the ones I ever talked to, not interested in statehood because they felt it would undermine the Spanish culture of Puerto Rico. No independence. They felt that would result in a poorer Puerto Rico, and they feared that Puerto Rico could end up like Cuba type thing. So they basically supported the status quo. Now, those are military guys who serve in the American military. Have any sense about how this breaks out amongst the civilian population of Puerto Rico?
The last time that there was a referendum in Puerto Rico for those who voted, that took the time to vote because they didn't think there was some sort of interference here or there, there was a slight majority margin that wanted statehood. There were the people that bothered to go to vote. That's the last that I've heard from my family. But then there's a type of partiality wherever you get the information from. Do Puerto Ricans understand that if they become a state, they could lose the language? Well, I understand that. Yeah, they will lose the language. You know, it will be, I mean, if you give that preferential statement to a different state, they want to do it to Alaska or Hawaii or Indiana or Wyoming or whatever have you. Puerto Ricans that are pro-statehood, for many years, they just probably, including, I'm talking about my parents now, they're probably just because they enjoyed a lot of benefits that happened when you were, you know, that they saw how the American investments on doing things, education or something, they were, you know, they felt protected because of the Navy around or whatever have you, in a different era, how things were done in the power play of world politics. But I'm sure that if I would sit down with my mother of 50 years ago, right now, or my father of 50 years ago, and say, let me tell you what happens before you become a state. These are the steps that have to happen. The island has to vote this way. Then there have to be a constitutional this. Then the states have to vote this way. And you think that this particular political party is going to want to have X amount of representatives representing the island that could tip the power of Congress here or there, this way or the other. They may have a different perspective than what they had about becoming a state, or they may have the same one. They may just want to fight, to struggle with it forever. So you're not gonna get from me what I think about it, because I'm happily living in Indiana. I happily travel to Puerto Rico. I don't have to show a passport when I go to Puerto Rico. But sometimes I like to tease my friends in Puerto Rico. Sometimes it's like, you guys are more state than you can imagine. I come to Puerto Rico, I visit, you guys are more state than you could possibly imagine. But then you have to make a decision, because you're the ones living in here. Do you want to be the state, or you want to be a separate entity? Because you learn from, say, other countries in the world that enjoy the same amount of population. Israel, for example, it's an independent country, a small population. And there are other countries around Europe or other places that have independence, and so that's just a big subject. And you put 100 Puerto Ricans in here, you're going to get 100 different opinions.
Okay, so
thank you, Mr. Davidson.
Miguel, thank you very much. We are going to be wrapping up here.
Thank you.
As you guys know, we'll spend a couple minutes trying to get some chairs out of the way, some tables over here, so we can enjoy our Puerto Rican treats. And you can feel free on the left table there, look at some previous events and festivals, sign up on our email list if you're interested. We do have a website, ValpoVic, V-I-C, valpovic.org. And social media. So please look at our events there, and our World Cultural Festival coming up. Stick around afterwards. I'm sure there's going to be some dancing involved. So
I disconnected that. So
yes, we have some music and some dancing going. So thank you very much, Miguel.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.